But if somebody was trying to contract their own build or even do it themselves, right? And what kind of advice would you give them for preparing for that first phase of getting plumbing in and the importance of it, and maybe even why they should hire a plumber versus trying to do it themselves?
Probably the biggest reason I would say, I mean, and I'm not gonna knock the plumbing trade. There's good and bad. Some guys could care less. You want it right there? Okay, I'll put it over there.
Right.
But probably the biggest thing that you've got, if you're going to do it yourself, keep it simple. Remember, nothing will flow downhill unless it has a way to escape air. So for every drain, there needs to be a vent. Now, you can share a toilet with a sink because the sink's going to have a drain. It's going to have a vent, so it'll be okay. But remember, everything's got to flow downhill no matter what. And the secret to that is don't over dig when you're digging.
Right.
Because if there's a belly in a pipe, everything stops at that belly. It doesn't take long for it to completely stop. So, that plus, the old school way of putting strings up, just if you don't think your measurements are right, take the extra time. If you're going to do it yourself, take the extra time and, okay, my bathroom is 10 feet wide. Put a string across the whole pad. You'll know if you're in that wall or not.
Right.
Because it's very easy to move it now. But the jackhammer is really hard to work later. So you can move it a little bit. You can get it as close as possible. And, call a local plumber, maybe pay him $1,000 to come out and tell you what the codes are.
Right.
So that way, at least the first time is okay.
Right.
If you have to make some changes after it's inspected, that's okay. Then he can tell you, hey, look, this is wrong. This is why. Fix it.
Right.
And then go on.
To piggyback on something I thought about when you were talking about that is I don't hear this all the time because I'm not in sales anymore, right? I'm not on the phone with them on the front end, but I remember having it, and I know it comes up from time to time because, especially with new agents, because I see them pop in and ask the question, but a lot of people had something. It's not as big now because predominantly every house is built on a slab. But when that started becoming a thing in our area, I don't know how many years ago, and people,
25, probably.
People started getting away from crawl space, and you started doing more and more and more monolithic slabs. Everybody was always fearful of having plumbing in the ground. Like, oh my God, what if we have a problem? What if we have a leak? What if we have this? What if we have that? Like, put some of that into perspective when they're burying that pipe under there and all the concrete going on top of it and stuff like that. From your perspective.
That's probably the biggest thing. Like when you start the underground, and like we were talking about earlier, being 8 inches beneath the finished concrete. If you can't put dirt on the top of the pipes and protect them, guess what? They're going to get broken.
Right.
So that's, everybody wants to, well, I don't want to build my pad up because it's going to cost me another $2,000. Well, what's better now? $2,000. You got something good for later. You don't have drainage issues. You don't have water retention issues. And your plumbing is going to be spot on. You don't have to worry about it later. And probably that's the biggest thing I see people try to cheat on.
Right.
If you're cheating from the beginning, you're going to lose.
Right.
It's going to be bad throughout the whole process. It's never going to turn out long-term good. And I go out to sites, not really too many of the Barndos. Most of them, it's a fresh grade, so they have a chance to build the pad where they need it, slope the water away. I go see a lot of people, and they're like, oh, I want to put it over here. And I'm like, I don't think so, man. It's 3 feet down.
Right.
Well, can't you get it? Well, yeah, you can add a pump and pump uphill if you need to, but that's not a long-term process.
Right.
It's not good for later.
Right.
So, the biggest thing is people need to pay attention where you're going to put the water heater.
Right.
Think about it now, in the very, 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 very beginning before you start. Where are you going to put your water heater? Don't think about it afterwards because there may not be a spot for it. Right. You may lose your bedroom closet.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I would say that all lends into like the importance of having someone walk you through the process and building with someone who builds hundreds and hundreds of houses and does this all the time and to think about things you don't think about. But I know there's a lot of people in the DIY section here, so I always try to like give a little bit of time to like give pointers and tips and advice and things like that. But there's so much that people don't think about. And one of the things is like we created standards and we don't deviate from them. So we don't allow people to walk backwards from our standards. If you can't do it with our standards, then this isn't the right.
It's not the right mix.
Yeah, it's not the right mix. We're not going to deviate from it, because anytime we've ever deviated from a standard, it creates chaos and problems, and it's just not worth it, right? So the product is the product. This is the way we do it. So when you come in and build with us, we know for a fact like all this is going to be taken care of for you, and you don't have to worry about it. But it took us a while to get to those standards, and you live and you learn. You live through experiences. You go in and you experience something. You go, I don't ever want to experience that again. How do I prevent that from happening? And so we're constantly tweaking our standards and improving the process and making this better and this happen. And having some of that guidance through the design and locating some of those things, like, hey, where's the water heater going to go? This is what's going to look like. Is it a tankless? Is it this? And figuring all that out, and they don't have to even think about it. Helps a lot of people, right? It helps people move through that process. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.